Hi everyone, it's Emma. Welcome back to another video. I hope you've all had a good week and that you've been going out and using some of the cool techniques and the cool tricks that we've been learning over the past few weeks. If you've got any really cool pictures, I would love to see them, so make sure that you post them to the email address below. So this week we are going to be talking about water and how we can use that in our photography, even using just our phones or our tablets to make really cool creative images. So we're going to be playing around with reflections, natural reflections that you see in everyday life and how we can create our own reflections. And I'm going to teach you one of my very favourite photography hacks. It's really cool, I think you'll enjoy it, and I'll do that at the end of this video. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy. So last week we were talking about perspectives and how we try and change our perspectives when we're taking photographs just to create more interesting images, more dynamic pictures, pictures with a little more depth, and things that are just going to be a bit more fun to look at than just a straight on picture of how we see the world every day. So we talked about how we hold our phone lower. If you're doing like a landscape or a picture of a flower, hold it a little lower down so that we see things a bit closer up, or you get more details in your picture. So you could get the grass and then flowers and then a bit of sky or people in the background, or pointing your phone straight up. So if you're in a dense amount of trees, you could point your phone straight up. You could get all the leaves coming over in a canopy, maybe bits of blue sky popping through. You could get birds flying overhead. You could get clouds moving, aeroplanes going over. So then we can flip it the other way and you can get feet walking by or bits and bobs on the ground. I've found really cool graffiti that's just been done on footpaths, or I did a photo journal a few years ago of things people had dropped on the floor, and I found really fun notes or messages. It's really cool just to look around you and look for things that you could take pictures of. There's always fun little messages written somewhere, so I hope you've all been giving that a go. I showed you one of my favourite photo hacks, which is using our phones as a reflector. So we can reflect the sky or trees depending on where you tilt it. You can use it in portraits as well to reflect your own face or someone else's face when you're taking a picture, or a group of people. It's really nice for interiors, even if you just had a cup of tea and you just got the reflection of that. If you've got glassy surfaces or anything like that, it doesn't always have to be outside or people. You can totally use these techniques with still life as well. And I don't think I'd mentioned that so much before, so I want you to know that if you can't get outside, you can do all of these techniques just with things you find in the house. I mean, grab a piece of fruit and put it on something shiny or just on any surface and try reflecting it and seeing what you can do with those techniques. So this week we're going to be talking a bit more about reflections, and we're going to be using water to do this. So one of the easiest things, or one that you will see every day, is natural bodies of water. So for instance, I live quite close to the River Lagan, so I'll take pictures of the river all the time. Like if I'm just crossing over the bridge or something to take my dog for a walk, or if I just want to get outside for a little bit on one of my once a day exercise walks. If it's a beautiful blue sky, sunny day, which we've been luckily having a lot of recently, I'll always stop by the river and take pictures like these. I'll pop some up so you can see what I take pictures of, but I don't really have to do very much work with that picture. The beautiful blue sky is going to be reflected in the water. I'm taking it from quite a high vantage point because I'm on a bridge, so I tend to tilt my phone up ever so slightly just to get more sky than water if I feel like I'm not getting a big reflection. But you can play around with tilting your phone downwards and upwards just to see where the light hits and where you're getting the best reflection. It's also pretty good if you've got wide bodies of water, like if you're near a pond or a lake or anything like that. Take them in landscape and then you'll just get a really nice expanse of, the blue sky reflected in the water. And they work really beautifully. You don't really need to do too much work. There's not very much tricks. I would just like go into a little editing afterwards, maybe up saturation or contrast a little bit, just to make those colours and the layers pop. So if you're doing pictures of water, another thing I would do, which you know, is change our perspectives. So from the bridge, for instance, I can't change the perspective too much, but if you're walking by the river and you have, you know, just the natural banking, I would do like we said last week and bring our phone down into the grass or the flowers or whatever that is there, and we're going to get the water from a lower vantage point. So maybe there wouldn't be quite as much sky in this picture, but you could get it all reflected in the water if you're tilting your phone downwards. But I would just play around with your angles or what you've got in front of the camera. You know, if you're popping your phone down into the banking of a river, for instance, or a pond, or if you've got a paddling pool in your back garden, you could do all of this. Or gosh, a bucket of water, like go for it. You can do it with anything. And then we'll pop our phone right near the water, so it's taking up the most of our thirds, so maybe 2/3 of it is all the water. If you want, you could tilt it downwards and just get all water but reflecting the sky completely. And yeah, just see if you can get flowers or grass or anything going in front, just to give the picture a little more depth as well. And one of my favourite things to do, if you can luckily get one of those perfect reflections, you know, when the water is really still, so you've not got any texture or anything or ripples or waves in it, and you can flip the photo upside down, so sky and water is reversed, and I always think that looks really cool. So if you are stuck at home and you can't really get out on big walks, or you've not got rivers or lakes or ponds nearby, you can always create reflections in your own home. If you've got a washing up bowl or bucket, even if you just had, you know, a mixing bowl or something from the house, grab that, take it outside or into a good spot of light, and you can put things into the water to get cool reflections, or you can hold things behind it. Or one of my favourite things to do is pick flowers. Nothing too pretty that we don't want to ruin, just things like daisies or dandelions that we've got loads of. We don't want to go around picking too much of the spring flowers. We like them alive and growing so everyone can enjoy them. But if you grab some daisies or a dandelion and you can put them into the water, and you could take pictures from above and get the reflections sort of going out from the sides or maybe the colours, or you can, you know, take your pictures from in front, so you're getting more of just the silhouetted shape of the flowers, and you know, if they're bright yellow, that will be reflecting in the water. There's loads of ways you can use it, but just, I don't know, think outside the box, do something a bit different. I always like, if you're not taking a natural reflection, just really go for it. Get a big bowl of water, put a bunch of flowers in it, you could put grass in it, fun leaves, and just play around with the shapes and getting shadows reflected on the water, and have fun with this technique. It's a really great way to get creative pictures. You can get them really naturally, like, you know, just the river and sky, or you can completely create your own set. It's almost like, you know, if you're making your own film set or something. So bowls, leaves, flowers, get them in there, get your phone in. Remember, it's really important when you're doing reflections that you're tapping the camera and choosing your focus point. So you always want the focus on the subject. So if it's flowers or leaves or clouds in the sky, anything like that, if you're shooting through leaves or flowers onto water, make sure that the focus is on the water and not anything closer to it. Just controlling exactly what's in our image and what we want people's eyes to be drawn to. So when you're doing reflections, it can be a lot. So by using the right focusing techniques, we're making sure that people are looking exactly where we want to, and that the right things are popping in our images. So here's a quick setup that I did at home. I got a glass mixing bowl and filled it with water, and then I put some food colouring into it to make it this sort of murky green colour. Darker colours can be better for reflections, but it works with clear water as well, as you'll see. And here you can see the different angles that I was playing around with to get the reflection of this flower. So you can take them more from above. I took them from sort of in between the waterline and the top of the glass bowl, just to play around with the effect and to see what I liked. And then you'll see the results here. So I reversed this image, so the reflection's at the top. You can see this lovely detailed reflection of this petal. I really liked the shapes and the blur in this image. And then here it is with clear water, and I let some of the petals fall. And also with clear water you get a refraction of the light, so you can get sort of rainbow shapes and these sort of elongated reflections, and it looks really beautiful. So really great techniques to try out. So the last technique or hack that I'm going to be showing you today is using Panorama on our phones. So we'll get our settings up and I'll show you which bit I mean. So we've used normal photo and we've used Pro. Video's just the same, and now we're going to be using Panorama. So I'll take a little screenshot now so you can see. This is on an Android phone, obviously it might be different on an iPhone, so just check your settings. Which bit I mean. And we're going to be using Panorama to take a really cool, portrait I suppose, or a landscape or a cityscape depending where you are. Now if you haven't used Panorama before, it's almost like a recorded photograph. So you move the camera across nice and slowly and your phone gives you a guide to follow, and it's almost like 5 or 10 different images all put together. So as I'm moving my phone across, it's taking picture after picture after picture and it's putting them together in one. If you do a really, really long one, you'll get a very, very sort of thin, wide landscape. I'll pop up some pictures that I took using Panorama and you'll see what I mean. If you just do it a little bit, you get a smaller panorama, but you'll get a bit more detail in it because it won't be sort of squished so long and thin. So with this technique and our clean lenses, what we do is get a friend or family member. I tried doing it with my pet, it didn't work so well, but we're going to get them to look like there are 3 or 4 or 5 versions of themselves all in one picture. So I'll pop up an example that I took today and you can see what I mean. So to do this, you have your phone on Panorama. A minute. Oh, you don't need to see this. It's on Panorama. There. So it looks like this. And then when you press record, instead of just taking one photo, the phone will ask you to move left or right, and you sort of just swoop the phone like this. And that would be for a normal panorama. But for our photograph, we're going to take it in little stages. And you're going to have a friend or family member, sibling, whoever you've got nearby, and you'll get them to stand in one spot. You'll press the picture, then you'll move to the next point, hold it still, and while you're doing this, they quickly run around you to another point, hold a different pose, and you move, and then once they're out of the shot, you get them to run around, do another one, move, and you can do it as many times as you like. It depends how much space that you've got to work with. I've got a small garden, so I didn't have too much to work with, and we did this a couple of times to test out different techniques. If you move in front, it will sometimes work, but occasionally you'll get a blur, so you can give that a go. If you move behind the person, so say he was running behind me to another point and then to another point, you tend not to get the blur. You can see my dog ran in on this one and it looks like she's deformed and has 2 different heads, which is terrifying and adorable still at the same time. So you're going to swoop your camera, pause, swoop your camera, pause, swoop your camera, pause, swoop your camera, pause, and then just to finish your panorama, you press the capture button again. And then if you've done it right, they should be a few different versions of themselves. You can get really fun with this. You can play around with different dynamics. Someone stood up, someone sat down, you could be on the floor, you can be farther away and then closer, and you can try and make it look like you're talking to yourself, and it's just a really fun technique. I had a lot of fun doing that one. I hadn't done it in a while and I forgot how much fun it is, not only as a picture but doing the capturing is really fun. But yeah, I hope you give that one a go. I think it's really funny, hilarious to share online, and just basically a really interesting, cool picture. And I think it's amazing that we can just do that with our phones instead of with crazy editing techniques you'd think you would need from like filming or editing or Photoshop. You don't need any of it, you can record it all live in your camera. So I'll show you this one that I tried with my dog. It didn't work quite as well. She didn't want to sit still, and she couldn't move, she just wanted to run forward. If you have a much better behaved dog or cat or pet, you can give that a go.
So you can also do this technique with still life. I gave it a go with one of my elephant ornaments on the windowsill. It didn't work out quite as well. I'll show you a few different versions, what went wrong and what went right. So I found that if I couldn't keep the phone steady, or because the line of the windowsill would move a lot, that I kept getting that weird sort of blur or error in my panorama. So I decided to do it on the floor instead and sort of swerve my phone across the floor so it was a steady surface to work on.
So camera shot. But yeah, that's a really cool picture, and I hope that you give that one a go. So we're going to wrap it up there for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video and it's given you a bit of inspiration to go out there and take some cool pictures with reflections. And then if you're using the panorama technique that I taught you today, please show us your images. I think it's so fun. It's a really cool technique, and I think everyone kind of enjoys it. You can make it really serious, and you can make it really funny. It's up to you. But play around with those techniques. Keep yourselves busy, keep yourself inspired, be creative, and I'll see you guys next week where we will be talking about portraits, how to take really cool portraits on your phone, and some pretty sweet Instagram hacks. I think you're going to want to be using these pictures as your profile pictures. So I'll see you next week, and yeah, thanks very much for stopping by.